Right, lately I found myself down the side of TikTok of autism awareness, autism mums, that department, yeah. I am an autism mum. You know, my son was diagnosed when he was 3. He's now in his 20s, grown and flown. And I've got so many things in retrospect that I'd love to pass on. So I might have to do a couple of videos um, on autism awareness. You know, I see these mums, struggling, and I think, God, that was me. That was me. And it's just sometimes handy to have a few ideas in the bag, in it, of how you're going to manage these situations. And one of them was this person was really upset their child is traumatized every morning going into school. And that was one of the hardest things that I remember. I did this for 5 years. Eventually, I pulled him out. And it got to the point where he was suicidal and he thought it was all his fault. And he thought that, it must be something wrong with him because he's not managing it and he couldn't verbalize what it was. He just hated school. And it's because I've learned now, I've educated myself. It's overstimulation. It's the opposite perfect environment for a child with sensory needs, yeah? Like, the way you teach neurotypical children is to have all the information on the walls, lots of it, lots of talking, lots of info, lots of visuals. With autism, it needs to be clear of that in order for them to learn. So for starters, you've got children that are overstimulated, just walking in the building. All the echoes in the hall, if you think about it, the sounds, the noises. It was worse on when he had to go into assembly. Assembly was one of the biggest things he hated, and it's loud, isn't it? There's like 100, 200, 300, 400 children at least in one hall at once. Imagine that. You wouldn't put a child with bad legs in a running race and wonder why he's not winning, would you? And yet, we're told that we have to take them to mainstream school and get the child to have to manage the wrong environment for them. It was never going to work. I didn't realise. And I went through it and I couldn't forgive myself afterwards, but it got to the point where he's coming out and he's been bashing his head on things and he's got bumps and lumps. And the better I was managing him at home, the more I realised the discrepancy between how he was after being at school. So obviously, in a moment, I said, you haven't got to go back anymore. But for 5 years, I physically had to restrain him into the school. And he said, I'm not going, Mum. Every morning I can't get... He said, why do you keep bringing me back here, Mum? If you love me, he said to me one day, what are you bringing me back here for every day? Every day he'd say, well, again. When we tell children they're going to go to school one day, they think it's a day out. Every day for the rest of your childhood, you're going to have to go in this building where they are not qualified to teach children with complex learning needs. They are not qualified in autism. I can't believe I sent him to a school and made him suffer like that. If you're in any doubt, right? If you're in any doubt, just take them out, give them a break. Go with your mother's instinct. My mother's instinct kicked in the end. I couldn't do it anymore. I looked at the stateroom, he'd ran away again. He'd run away every day. They'd ring me up every week. I couldn't go back to work. I was full-time care. So I pulled him out. I said, you haven't got to go anymore. And the look on his face of relief. And from that day, his anxiety snowballed in reverse. I've got to pass this on. It snowballed in reverse, so he got less anxious. The less I forced him into situations which it scares them to be in an unpredictable environment. It frightens them. A look of fear on a child's face. If you've had a child with autism, you'll know. Sometimes it shows itself in the fact that they're off the wall. They're bouncing off the walls. But they're overstimulated, too much engagement, too much language, minimise everything. I said to him, it's me and you now. We eat when we're hungry. We get up when we wake up. We go to sleep when we're tired. There's no rules anymore. I took the rules out. all those restrictions. They say they need structure. That's not the kind of structure they need. That is not flexible. Mainstream school cannot be flexible because they're like, well, we have to treat them all the same. No special treatment, that's what they say. Not asking for special treatment, just to meet his needs as you do with any neurotypical child. But you're talking to a brick wall with them. Depending on where you live. Where I live, apparently it's one of the worst in the country. But they can't tell you that. They can't tell you that your child's going to go through hell and it's going to traumatise them for years. My son became agoraphobic. He would not leave the house for years, most of his childhood. Because I realised afterwards, once I took him out of school, it became obvious. So every time we left the house, it was to force him into a building that he was overstimulated. He didn't understand what they were all going on about in there. It's like it didn't apply to him. He doesn't realise that they're even talking to him. You know what I mean? Innocence, pure innocence and love they are. Pure love. Yeah. Anyway, I pulled him out, and what that did was I tried homeschooling. To be honest, it was easier than forcing him into a building every day, because every time I left the house, it was positive. And as soon as you start rewiring your brain to associate leaving the house with something that you enjoy, and then it turned out well for you, and you're not in a terrible state because you were forced into the car, you stop getting anxious. And then the less you get anxious, the less anxiety provoking it is. And it just works in reverse. You'll know whether it's the right thing because you'll instantly be better. Right? Now, I tried homeschooling really hard with the child who doesn't want to engage or like the word school anymore. Even just saying the word school, we'd be like, ah, running around the house going, nah, you know. So I incorporated our life into his education. Everything that we were doing anyway. Just he came along and tried to get him to document it, record it. You know, they love measurements, recording, science projects. Make everything into a science project, everything. You know, the basics, that's what I tried doing. But anyway, eventually when he wanted to go back to school, it jump-started him to the front of the list to be in the best, most amazing school that I couldn't dream of, hope for. A tailored education with a whole team of people that are doing what you're doing. And the first time in my life, I could breathe a sigh of relief. Honestly, it brings tears to me just remembering that. So yeah, any mum who's feeling like their child's traumatised, don't doubt your mother's instinct, because the minute you pull them out, they start listening, because they're never going to admit they're not managing them. They're just going to put it down as like, you're going to just think he's playing up. He's going to blame himself. Anyway, what have you got to lose? Yeah, that's my best advice. If you think it's wrong, it probably is. Okay, it's going to go against all your basic instincts. All right. Yeah, that's my first video.